Hello, everybody. Welcome to our first discussion type video here on the channel. If this is your first time, we are some of the members of the Rollers Guild, D&D actual play that's at the time of this recording, about 9 episodes in. On YouTube and as a podcast. But I thought it might be fun to gather together with a couple of the other cast members. My name is Ben, for those of you who haven't been on our channel before. And with me are Matt and Kelly, two of the players in our campaign. And we want to talk about Critical Role. Campaign 2 has just come to an end. Matt, actually, you said you finished watching the finale today.
I finished today at about 3. As of us recording this, it's 7. So
yeah,
relatively fresh.
Pretty fresh.
Fresher than us.
Yeah.
So fresh.
Yeah. But, I wanted to just sort of get together. The three of us, are sort of the main ones in our group that have watched all of Campaign 2. We've got other members of the group that are
getting into
it, but we've
just
sort of just in time.
That's the nice thing about these things, though, because you can just tune in whenever.
Yeah.
Go back to your favorites.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're a critter and you're joining us for the first time, and you are feeling sort of a little bit of a void left from the end of Campaign 2 of Critical Role, I know we are.
And it's not even Thursday
again. And it's not even Thursday yet for us.
We're doing this before the state of the roll, where we know what's coming next.
Yes, we're doing this before the state of the roll on Thursday. So the state of the roll should be on Thursday, June 10th. So yes, we're recording this before then, so we don't even know what the secret project that they teased was. So we could maybe speculate a little bit if y'all are into that, but. If you like us are feeling a little bit bittersweet about the end of Campaign 2, hopefully, us talking about the campaign, some of our favorite parts, that sort of thing, and can help fill some of that. And definitely let us know in the comments down below what your favorite parts of the campaign were, what Critical Role means to you. We just think it's a really great show, and I don't know, it's something that we wanted to do to show our love for Critical Role. So, I guess with that,
I feel like we should start off with our Critical Role journeys.
That's exactly where I was going to start us out. Start us out with our Critical Role journeys. Talking about how we first got into the show and stuff. So. Kelly, since you said it literally right before I said it, do you want to start?
Yeah, I blame Ben. So I don't know if any of how we know each other has ever been explicitly stated on our channel, but Ben and I are dating, and so yeah, we're in the same. You can't see. We're in the same apartment. Recording this, but because he's the DM, I'm never allowed to look at his computer screen, so we have separate recording situations. But that's besides the point. That has nothing to do with Critical Role. So shortly after, well, I guess at the beginning of, shortly before we started dating / the beginning of our relationship, Ben was starting to get into Critical Role. So you really should have started this, Ben, because, but whatever, I'm giving away your story. And so he was constantly listening to and watching this show, and I'd catch little blips here and there, and I'd be like, and he was like going from campaign 1 like starting from the beginning. And so I'd be like, oh, what are they doing this time? Oh, like what's happening now? And I'd get little updates. But it seemed like a very daunting task to work through. I don't have unlimited data. Ben does, so that makes it easier for him to just watch YouTube all day. So I was like, I can't start from campaign 1. And so once he got into campaign 2, I was like, okay, this seems a little bit more manageable because there's less episodes to catch up on. And so I started making my way through very slowly the beginning of campaign 2, and kind of got stuck. Like life happened and I got stuck and took a break. And then the pandemic hit. And then I wasn't...
Everything got stuck.
Yeah.
Everything.
And I
Indeed,
wasn't
got stuck.
going into work every day. I'm a teacher, so we had like some days I was having video conferences with people, and some days I was just like, oh, nobody showed up. All right. So I just put Critical Role on in the background and hung out, played Animal Crossing, did puzzles. And then I caught up. I think it took me until the fall to catch up completely. And then Ben had to wait until I could watch with him to watch the next episode. So it became our Friday night rituals, and I came up with a dance for the theme song, and I love it a lot, and I'm sad that it's over.
That's right. Hey, if it's not too much editing, you should maybe include a little clip of that dance.
I
Very
am
small
sure I
clip.
have a recording of it.
Small clip.
Potentially include it here. Wow,
Amazing.
wasn't that
Wow,
great?
that's
I hope
such a
that
dance.
actually happened.
I'm-
Otherwise,
It would be
everyone
really,
hates me now.
really funny if it did.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I think you sent it to the group because you're a meme
Yeah.
like that.
That's the only way I was saying it. Yeah.
Well, I guess since my story was hinted at via Kelly's story, I'll talk about how I got into Critical Role next. So I had tried playing D&D once, about a year before I actually started playing D&D. So, and it was, it was fun the first time I tried it, but I didn't really know what was going on. I didn't really quite mesh up. Nobody that we were playing with except one acquaintance of this was actually with Sam and Eva, who are other members of our cast for the show. One acquaintance of theirs had played before, but they were the only one who had played before. And I don't know, that first time it didn't really click. I didn't know what was possible with D&D.
It's a lot all at once.
Yeah, exactly. Especially because, the only person who had ever played before, well, Sam had played a few times with his siblings growing up, older editions of the game. had played a couple times with his siblings growing up, but I don't think ever played regularly or consistently growing up, though I'm sure if I'm wrong, he can let me know.
Sam, scream in the comments.
Yep.
Yeah, Sam, let us know in the comments how wrong I am. But at any rate, you know, that first time we tried it, it was fun. It didn't really click. But it was always something that somewhere in the back of my head, I was like, I kind of want to give it another try, but I just, you know, the opportunity just never really presented itself and so on and so forth. But one of my coworkers at the time was getting into Critical Role. And he suggested I check it out. He had just started going to Adventurers League games, and he was trying to get me to like come with him after work sometimes and just, you know, generally come check it out. So finally, you know, yeah, I was like, okay, I'll give this show a start. And I started from episode 1 of campaign 1. And about only a couple weeks later, I messaged Sam and Eva and another one of our cast members, Kira, and was like, we should try playing Dungeons and Dragons again. Only a few weeks after that, and we tried it again, and it was a lot better that time because I think we were all a little bit more invested in trying it, and I at that point had watched several episodes of Critical Role and had started getting into it, and so really I have Critical Role to thank for learning how to play Dungeons and Dragons, not in terms of like I learned the rules watching it, though I did learn some of the nuances of the rules by watching the show because you know, Matt Mercer is a very, very good DM, obviously, goes without saying, but more from just I saw what D&D could be by watching Critical Role, and that really inspired me to actually learn how to play. And then we invited more and more and more of our friends to continue playing, including Kelly. Invited Kelly to play with us.
So I also have Critical Role to thank for.
Yes, that literally right before Kelly and I started dating. So it was, I don't know, it was very, very good. I watched campaign 1 all the way through. I loved it. And then I got caught up with campaign 2 right around the time Ford took his first level in Paladin.
Oh, really?
That was around the time I got caught up with the show.
That's when, wow.
Which was a very, very cool arc, but we can talk more about that as we get into just talking about some of our favorite parts of the show and stuff. So yeah, that's my Critical Role journey. Matt.
Oh, well, as with all things in Ben and my life, our stories are very similar. We are the same person.
In many ways. In many ways.
I don't know how this one happened. So I am, unlike the rest of the crew, I don't live anywhere near anyone else. I'm in a different time zone. But Ben and I are good friends from way back when. But my sister played D&D, I think while she was in college. She's a few years older than me. And she was like, you're going to enjoy this. And I, ever the skeptic, was like, no, I'm not. I'm not going to listen to everything you say. I wish I had because, wow. Then it took until I was working at a theater in Chicago, where spoiler, I live.
Try to find
gas.
Find me. where I was just like working, just another day in the old bullpen, and I heard one of my coworkers, also named Matt, because it's the 90s, we're all named Matt, and he was talking to someone else that he was wanting to start a D&D game, and I stuck my head over the little cubicle. I went, D&D? I'd be interested. And we got together a little group of 5 folks, and this guy ran a homebrew campaign for us, and to kind of get us all on board, he said he recommended listening to Critical Role as just an idea to learn some of the roles, learn the mechanics, learn how to be creative with choices and just how the dice actually work. One of the things that I remember, one of the first Terry talks is what I call them. My mom calls me now and then and says, I don't understand what happened in the game. Or why did you make this choice? Or what's going on here? That I think at this point, now that I've been playing for 3-ish years, that mechanics are real hard to pick up in the beginning if you don't have anything to go off of. And so having Critical Role to base everything off of. In the beginning, I didn't watch them. I only listened to the podcast. And so I was still a little confused at times because I would just listen to them on the commute or I was working out or something. Not actually super paying attention. But I think I caught up about, it was early, maybe like episode 30 of campaign 2. It was, I don't exactly remember when. It was pretty early on. But yeah, following ever since. I still have not watched all of campaign 1. I know everything. I looked it all up because honestly, it's all been referenced and there's so much material out there talking about it, best moments and everything.
Right.
That one day down the line, I'll probably, maybe during the lull that is now, I'll go back and watch some of the best arcs.
I'm gonna watch it this summer.
Nice.
I think I'm on episode 7 of campaign 1.
Yeah, I think I'm on 14 or so.
Yeah.
If there's critters in the comments who disagree with me, feel free to sound off. But once you get to the Briarwood arc in campaign 1, boy, howdy, does it take off, and it gets really, really good. Yep. The Briarwood arc is phenomenal. There's a reason that's the arc they're adapting first for the cartoon. Great. Well, I guess at this point we are going to move into talking about the actual show and characters and stuff. And I guess this is the last point for if you're watching this and you haven't seen all of Critical Role Campaign 2, including the finale.
The 7-hour.
Including the 7-hour finale of Campaign 2. Please, if you do not want to be spoiled on anything, stop here. Because
Get out.
I can make no guarantees that we won't spoil something for you.
Oh, we're gonna spoil lots.
We're gonna spoil lots of stuff.
Honestly, I'm impressed you guys. I'm impressed you're still around. We've been at this 20-ish,
right?
15 minutes.
Yeah.
Ben has spoiled something already. So
I did spoil one thing earlier.
We will have to warn some of our castmates who have not. Well, they wouldn't watch this anyway. I don't know. Okay.
They might.
Maybe.
They might watch.
Sam, I'm looking at you.
Yeah, Sam, you better, because you got to correct me on something.
Just the first 20 minutes.
Yeah. But seriously, if you haven't seen Campaign 2 and spoilers upset you, click away, come back to this video later if you get to the end of Campaign 2 and you, like us, are feeling that lull of, Critical Role's over? Really?
Although they might not have a lull.
Well, they might not have a lull. Campaign 3 might be out by the time they catch up.
But this story, right?
You should...
This story. Yeah.
So you should still watch this.
Yeah, it defines so much of...
Yeah.
I mean, for each of us, right? We just said the like campaign 2 was how we really got into it and got started.
Yeah.
So the fact that this is over is why it's such a big like hit.
Yeah, for sure.
Because these are the characters that not only did they learn and like the story develop, they learned so much about themselves, but like we learned everything with them.
I learned I didn't learn how to play D&D, but I definitely like learned how to make it more interesting and more fun and pull other things out of other people when playing. And
I guess to take things from the beginning of campaign 2.
In the beginning.
Think back all the way back then. Could you have possibly imagined how well everything was going to tie back together by the end?
I don't know how, and I'm sure they regularly and they have a little bit, but like regularly still look at each other and go, how did we get that number? How did we get that number like right? Because it wasn't a scripted thing. It wasn't a plan. Like Mercer said that before. It's not like, nine's gonna show up everywhere now.
They just kept rolling 9s, and they were like,
yeah, it was a fun gimmick,
9.
and then they
yeah.
It's those moments that when like Matt breaks and just laughs and he says, I fucking love this game.
Yeah.
That like you never, when the dice tell a story instead of just, I mean, why I love D&D is because it's a unique collaborative storytelling thing, right? Where even though the DM's the one running it, it's still everybody contributing and building and creating and exploring together. Plus the randomness of having to improvise what happens and justify every single one of those dice.
Yeah. It's a phenomenal game, and the whole cast of Critical Role are absolutely some of the best D&D players out there. Obviously, them all being voice actors adds a ton to that, right? It really adds to their performances. But I think even beyond that, it's really cool to see how much their connection with each other really shines through. And all of my favorite D&D actual plays, that's the case, right? You can tell that the people around the table have a really strong connection with each other. But we're not talking about other D&D actual plays. We're talking about Critical Role tonight. But obviously, there's lots of great actual plays out there. Not the least of which is our one.
Plug.
No, we're not.
We're not comparing ourselves.
We are not comparing ourselves to Critical Role.
I think we're exactly on the same level as Critical Role. I think our voice acting is just as good.
Yeah. Yeah, my 5 voices as DM.
I love your 5 voices. Everyone's related. Everyone's got the same.
Yeah.
Good. Because that's all you need. Like voices aren't actually required.
Excellent.
That's one of the criticisms of Critical Role, because now everyone's like, oh, you have to do these voices. It's like, no, it's not required. Like every single character I do has an accent to the detriment of my own performance and my own ego. But just because I found it much easier to keep track of when I'm asking Ben a question versus when Artemis is asking a question, like it's just easier to transition and understand instead of, oh, you meant in game or something else. Yeah. That's not about Critical Role.
No, but I mean, these are all things that are spawned from Critical Role, and that is something that people sometimes bring up. I think they call it the Matt Mercer effect.
Yeah.
I genuinely do not think the Matt Mercer effect is as much of a problem as some people on the internet make it out to be.
Whoa, Ben, you're just asking for it.
I think there's very, very few people who sit down to play Dungeons and Dragons for the first time and genuinely think that it's going to be that the DM is going to do it exactly how Matt Mercer does.
Yeah.
Um,
Most of the time, I'm like, that's what Matt did. Like, Ben will do something. I'll be like, yeah, come on.
So yeah, I mean, it's great to learn from other dungeon masters out there and take inspiration from them. Something I do in our home games is I do use Matt's "How do you want to do this?" right? Because
it's so good.
It's so good.
That's what I use when I run games because it's
it's such a great line.
It's a really satisfying way to end an encounter. But I think, and this is again, we're wandering very far, so this is going to be kind of rambly. But I think it's really good to learn from other DMs by playing in other DMs' games, by watching shows like Critical Role, or one of my other favorites, Dimension 20. If you've never seen Brennan Lee Mulligan DM a game, do yourself a favor and go watch that. I would honestly say he's up at the same level as Matt Mercer. The two of them are both incredible DMs. But you know, it's great to learn from other people. And I think, and again, we're sort of going back to that common thread with all of our stories is learning D&D by watching Critical Role, because it's a great way to learn, and it's a great story with a lot of heart. And I think to come around to one of the things that I love about Critical Role is you can tell that it's something that they're passionate about, right? Everybody in the cast is passionate about the story, they're passionate about the characters. I'm sure we've all seen TV shows or movies where it was clear that it was just a cash grab. There was no heart in it. There was no genuine investment on the part of the creatives involved in it. It was just they wanted to pump something out. But Critical Role has never felt that way. Critical Role, and you can tell that it's a game that they are all loving playing with each other. I guess this transitions into what are the things we love about Critical Role in particular.
They remember so much. Like, they'll reference things that happened in like the first couple arcs, and I'm like, that was months ago for me, and I like watched all those episodes back to back. That was like 2 years ago for them. That's just like me personally. I can't remember things minute to minute, so like even with looking at my notes, I don't know what I'm looking for. So that's one thing that I am always marveled by. But also just, they also come up with some really great like things to do. Like whenever they have like a shopping episode or they go off on things that aren't related to their like big arc or their big task, those are sometimes some of the best moments in an arc, I think.
Yeah, they continually keep things driven by creative choices, right? And experimenting. So it's not just, oh, I'm gonna go see if I can get buy some better armor or buy some health potions. The opportunity, and I think one of the things that Matt Mercer does incredibly well is he picks the moments to flesh out and say, okay, you're going to talk to this shopkeep. And based pretty quickly, you can judge, is this like a role play moment you want to go through, and are wacky shenanigans going to ensue versus, yeah, easy enough. It's going to cost 50 gold. You find 3 of them. So mark that off.
Yeah. Done.
And like the ability to read each other, again, the chemistry between the group. Being able to read each other and know, okay, is Travis about to explode in the corner from the shopping episode?
Is he about to pop another fidget ball? Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I agree with everything both of you have said as well. I I have found that the characters interacting with each other is my favorite part of Critical Role. You know, the combats are fine, they're enjoyable. You know, especially the really big combat encounters, right? Your you know, final battle against Bakoto was super cool. The final battle, one of for me, probably my favorite combat encounter in all of campaign 2 was not the final combat. Well, I guess not the penultimate combat, the final Lucian combat, not the final Trent one. But it wasn't either of those, though they were both very good combats. But my favorite combat encounter is on Dark Toe when they take down Avantika.
That was pretty cool.
Starting with the wall of fire on the pirate ship.
Just instant chaos and having to deal with it.
It was an incredible combat, and the story social role play payoff at the end of that with the Plank King bringing judgment down upon Avantika. That moment has stuck with me ever since I watched that episode. That is for me, one of the most memorable moments of the whole campaign is when the Plank King snaps Avantika's neck.
Like a twig.
Like a twig. It's brutal. The combat is crazy and really awesome to watch. Everybody's firing on all cylinders, doing everything possible to get out of this alive, because it's definitely one of the more risky combat encounters they ever engaged in. There were many combat encounters over the course of the campaign where I was like, oh, they got this. Even the final, I was literally saying this when we were watching the episode, and Kelly was threatening to kill me because I was going to jinx it. But the battle against Trent Ickathon in the last episode, as soon as that combat encounter started, I'm like, yeah, it's Trent. They just beat a god. They can handle Trent.
Yeah, I was a little nervous once we saw the other Volstruckers, like, because we suspected, we never truly knew if they were going to actually, have the gumption to make the swap.
Right.
I mean, once they figured to dispel one of Trent's, various buffs.
Yeah.
Then at that point, it was like, there aren't any other, because one of the things that like you and I were recently talking about is that like combat gets so much more difficult based on action economy. How many like legendary actions? Trent didn't have legendary actions like their last battle and the layer actions and other huge complicated things.
Right.
So like once it was just down to 3 versus the 9, it was just going to even out that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I felt the same, that like I enjoyed it, and I was so glad that we got to see the like Trent story resolve, because I was you and I were talking another time, because we talk every freaking day. We were saying, oh well, maybe the like that'll be one of the one shots they do later on. They'll wrap up that story, or they've just decided to kind of put the bows on some of these stories in other ways, and other one shot things. So the fact that they were in essence just jumped. It was like, oh, we're doing this now, but it wasn't because we had just come off of the thrill of the Lucian, gods know what's gonna happen. I still like definitely enjoyed it, but at the end of it, I was like, there was a part of me that was a little sad that was the final fight, right?
Sure.
And I'm not sure that I would have done anything different.
Yeah,
I still like agree with all the character choices, but it just
I kind of think of it as, right, the Lucian fight was the big climax. The Trent fight, that's part of the falling action.
He kept saying those words over and over and over again as well.
It's true.
Oh, was you watching?
It's the falling action. It's fine.
But all this to say, I do love the combat in Critical Role because it's very cool, very especially again when it's those big combats. Even the random encounters are fun, but they're at the end of the day they're random encounters, right? Even when they're really good random encounters, they're they're some of the most well done true random encounters that I've seen. But the combats in Critical Role are fun, but my favorite parts have always been the character interactions, right? The scenes where they're sitting around the fire talking to each other, or they're in the tower. Those were some of my favorite moments in campaign 2.
They always have such good questions to ask each other, and questions that allow the audience to learn about the backstory, because I think that's another one of my favorite parts, is just exploring the backstories, because you meet these characters and they're in a certain place in their life, and I enjoy Bo's backstory, but I've enjoyed learning about her backstory and all of the crazy shit that she's gone through, and those are the kinds of those struggles, and learning what they need to do or what they should do to make things right in their lives. That always interested me more than the combat.
I think
was cool.
I think the best combat scenarios for me were where there were interesting physical obstacles, right? Sometime in the Happy Fun Ball, when the golems chasing them have to get to those floating islands, and they have all these interesting constraints.
Right.
When Ford uses a super creative use of, it's either Misty Step or Dimension Door, as he's falling off of the top of the ship, which is why every single one of my characters will always have the ability to jump, because that is just so useful.
God, that combat encounter was insane.
I screamed when he did that.
Was that's the one, the 3 floors of the ship?
Yeah.
That was one of the combats that Ben was watching, and I before I started watching Critical Role, and I was like, what is happening? Wait, I want to know what's going on.
Well, and I was watching that episode live, and the sheer stress, right, of Ford getting attacked in the middle of the night, that he's at the top of the mast, he falls, he does that super cool Misty Step thing, but then he's really low hit points, he takes those hits and he tumbles over the crow's nest and dies. I was so stressed that whole time, and I know everyone around the table was I wasn't necessarily worried about him not getting resurrected, because I knew they had access to resurrection magic,
right?
But what I was most stressed about was Ukato's servants grabbing his body and taking it away.
Which can't do anything without a body.
Yeah, which was a very unless you have true resurrection, you're screwed if you don't have a body.
Right.
It was a very, very stressful combat encounter, but also a super memorable combat.
Those moments that, I mean, the other in the Happy Fun Ball with the dragon pretty early on, and you just don't know if someone's just was the only one in there, and if something goes wrong, they can't get back, right?
Yeah.
They can't get back in time. So crazy, there are so many different ways that there are, there are gnolls, and you're going to chase them into the mine, just fairly standard, straightforward encounters, and there's this good mix of all these interesting, super stressful scenarios that also, when things can become stressful, just because of the creativity of either Matt or things, just the dice just happen to say certain things.
Yeah. Continuing to talk about memorable moments, both combat moments and role-playing moments. You know, one moment that has certainly stuck with me as well, pretty early in the campaign, was the scene where everybody confronted Not about Caleb's behavior, and Not said something to the effect of, "You all assume that he's the parent and I'm the child, but actually I'm the parent. I'm protecting him." It was a really interesting moment for me, and as was clearly the intention on Sam's part as a player, was to sort of make everybody re-examine that relationship, right, between Not and
Completely
Caleb.
flip it.
Yeah.
Completely flipped it. And I mean, for the rest of the campaign, that was somewhere in the back of my head, was that moment.
I think Caleb's journey was the most satisfying. I think also because every single character I played has some spoiler, has some crazy, twisted, dark secret somewhere. And that's just the kind of, I don't know what that says about me, but that's just the kind of character that every single time I've been like, I'm just not interested in this character that I'm building yet. But what if for the inciting incident, for the dark secret that they're carrying, that can really drive some of these like character moments. Like I think we're all like saying these are our best moments when there's some complication.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's at the end of everything, like that was the most heart-wrenching, the finale of just basically spelling out, this is the rest of his life, this is what happens, and the choice to leave the past alone.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone, Liam said that he still didn't quite know what Caleb was going to choose when the moment came, right?
Right.
Yeah. I was very proud of Caleb because
I don't think I would have done it. Yeah.
I think it really showed how much he had grown as a character. And I agree. I think I found Caleb's arc over the course of the campaign to be an extremely satisfying one. Learning to trust, learning to love his friends, learning to let go of the past eventually, and learning. One thing I really liked was when Matt was doing the whole thing of what do you do from this point forward. Liam very intentionally said Caleb spends the rest of his life trying to dismantle the Cerberus Assembly, because Caleb understood that institutions like that, you can't just remove one person and suddenly it's all better. And I think that's why Caleb didn't join the Cerberus Assembly, because he knew the whole institution was built on
corruption
and evil. I mean, the whole institution is evil to its core, and so in a very real world sort of way, that's not something that you can portray super well, I don't think, in D&D, or at least it's difficult to portray it super well. Saying this as I'm running a campaign about rising up.
Vive la revolution!
Wealthy class, but just dismantling an organization like the Service Assembly, that's not something that's just fixed by removing a Trent Ickathon, right? That's going to take years, probably multiple generations.
Certainly.
Fighting for the same things and the same justice over and over and over again, as we see in our real world too. And so I really liked Caleb's arc. I really liked that Liam very intentionally said that Caleb would spend the rest of his life doing it because that was his cause, that was his fight. And hopefully, Caleb's actions ushering in, teaching new generations of wizards moving forward could inspire future wizards to take up that fight and continue fighting against the corruption of the service system.
I definitely
It's
think.
also.
Oh,
go ahead.
No.
I definitely think that Caleb's arc was also the most fleshed out. Like, I think it was the one, like, Caleb's stuff was something that the whole group was like, yeah, this kind of affects all of us. We have to address this, especially since, like, the beginning of Ford's whole journey was trying to get to the school. I don't remember what the school's name was. But trying to
the one it's a dash.
Yeah. Trying to get into the school that Caleb went to, and like as you learned more about Caleb early on, you're like, why does Ford want to go here? Like, and then you start learning more about the secrecy and all of the terrible things that Trent did to his students. And so I think that everybody else was kind of like, this is something we all have to focus in on.
Yeah, the Caleb story is one of, like, pointing at Ford's story. Caleb's story is one of the ones that, like, even though everyone else's story, like, resolved their original, like, goals and intentions, pretty much did resolve the way it was really they set out for, right? Their like step one goals had check marks next to them by the end of it. Except Ford's, that his journey was changing and finding his path to that moment, becoming a paladin, right?
Yeah.
Like, that was his journey, was finding his right place, I guess you could argue, so that even though he meant to, my place will be
like, I can do magic now, I should learn more
I can do
about
magic, so I should learn more about magic, so I should go to the school. That I think that Caleb's was the one that hit the hardest. It was I think it was the most simple idea of, even though it was the most, like, complicated, nuanced, it was the most condensed. I want to take down the assembly. No idea how I'm going to get there, but that's my goal. The rest of my life, I know what I'm going to do. He didn't waver from it. And not to say that, like, everyone else did. Like, like, all of Knott's story is kind of getting back to family and getting back to her, right? She still accomplished all that, but in some way it felt very different from that simple idea that Caleb had.
Well, we've heaped a lot of praise upon Caleb now, so let's spread the love to some of the other characters.
Who is your favorite character, Ben? Of the Mighty Nine. Counting all nine.
Counting all nine.
Counting all nine plus Kiri.
This is actually, well, it's obviously going to be Kiri. I mean,
Kiri's just too
Kiri's too precious. My favorite member of the Mighty Nine. That is a very hard one for me. I do, because they all bring so much to the table, and they're all incredible characters in their own ways. But I think Caleb's up there, but I think my favorite member of the Mighty Nine is probably Beauregard, to be honest. Really? I really liked Beau, and I really liked the way Marisha played Beau. Beau was super rough around the edges. Beau was not trusting of other people for good reason. We learned why. but Bo was also fiercely loyal, loved her friends fiercely. I mean, the whole, sort of theme of the campaign was the Mighty Nein creating this family amongst each other. Most of them, when they joined the Mighty Nein, didn't have anybody else really in their lives,
or didn't think they had anybody.
Or didn't think they had anybody else in their
Seeking
lives.
family one way or the other.
Yeah. So obviously, that was part of everybody's journey, was coming together as a family, as the Mighty Nein. But I think it was I think that was a particularly pronounced theme for Bo. I loved Bo's journey from sort of this I don't know, for lack of a better term, like bad student type vibe, right? Which and again, you can understand why. She didn't want to be there. She'd been forcibly kidnapped and dragged off. But seeing her go from that at the beginning of the campaign to the end of the campaign, when she shows up at the Rexentrum Archive, drops off Trent, lays everything down on the line in front of the head of the Cobalt Soul, and getting the like praise and recognition, and basically having her case taken seriously, and also her personal case against her father, against Xenoth was his name.
Yeah.
Who kidnapped her. Seeing that getting taken seriously was very, very cool.
I almost cried at that part.
Yeah.
Like, really
and Bo had some of the most clutch. This is also, largely on Marisha as well as a player, but Bo was super clutch in putting pieces together, seeing the patterns, figuring it out. That moment in, like, right before they went to where Molly was buried, where she has her like conspiracy Charlie meme moment, she got so much of it right. She, I mean, I have to go back and rewatch that section, but she had figured out, like, honestly, like a good 80% of it.
Yeah, she almost just wrote out the end game right there.
Yeah, just from putting these clues together, from connecting these dots, that was a really cool moment to see. It really speaks to Marisha as a player, and it really speaks to Bo as a character, who I really liked Bo. And it doesn't hurt that I do have a Beauregard tea that I got that Kelly actually got me from a critter like tea.
We'll link the Etsy shop in the description below.
Etsy shop in the description, but
and they do all sorts of like fandom-y tea.
So that that does play part of it, because it's a very good tea.
It's very bold.
Yes.
I think that's the description.
Yes. And I just think I think it was really cool. And I as the only one here who's watched all of campaign 1, I liked Keyleth. But Keyleth was never my favorite character of I went blurry. That's better. Keyleth was never my favorite member of Vox Machina. Just because but I like I said, I liked Keyleth fine, but she was never my favorite. But something about Bo just, I don't know, clicked with me. Even though I'm not the type of person Bo is in a lot of ways, but
no.
But I don't know. Something about Bo's character really
When I think
resonated
Swolregard, I think Ben.
Yeah.
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 For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Bo's great. Favorite character, Kelly.
Jester.
Jester.
Yeah.
Talk about Jester.
She's just so cute. She's just so cute and tricksy, and whenever Laura opened her mouth to say something as Jester, I was just like, that was great. just I mean I don't know if it's more like I really like Jester or I'm just a big Laura Bailey fan. Could
Oh
be
man,
both
oh
of
man.
them, but
Laura and Travis
they're
are
just
what
amazing.
I want in my
Their
future. I just want to be
child
them.
is precious, and every time I see an image of their child, I squeal. Ben can confirm.
It's true. She regularly watches Laura's Instagram
Instagram stories.
stories just
So
for
cute.
the
Oh,
Ronan.
yeah.
Little Ronan,
Yeah.
whenever he makes an
Yeah.
appearance, I'm just like,
They're
I
incredible.
love that child.
I think Jester, when I first asked the question, I was like, I don't know what my answer is. And I think it was, I didn't want it to be Jester because there isn't the like deep dark secret, like I said, that I really enjoy in characters earlier, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's why I was always so fascinated by the choices that Laura made,
so
because she's such a juxtaposition to, you know, in all these fantasy settings, you've got, oh, here's the utopia. The big bad dark forces are closing in on it. And it's the refusal to give in
Mm-hmm.
and always be this beacon of joy and laughter and light. That was just such a contrast that I think is why, and maybe that's why I was talking about Caleb so much. Maybe Caleb's my favorite character. Because the contrast between the doom and gloom and just, this is the absolute worst, I am the absolute worst, versus the insistence, no, that's not true, there is good.
Right.
This is where
I'm
it
gonna
is.
draw dicks on everything.
I'm just gonna draw
To
dicks on
prove you-
everything.
to prove you
Everyone
wrong.
will smile.
Yeah.
Everyone will smile because of it.
Yeah.
Except those guards that she had to run from that one time.
Yeah. But yeah, I do think that it was Jester's like just consistent positivity. Like there were a few times where she was not her bubbly self, and that was when you knew that things were
She's
not
bad,
going
right?
well. But I'm a very like optimistic person, and so in this campaign where things kind of kept going wrong, it was just nice to have Jester's little blue light.
Yeah. I think another how am I trying to phrase this thought that I just had? I can barely remember it. I want to give some talk for Caduceus Clay.
Yes, that
That
he is my
motherfucker.
other.
Oh my god. I every time Caduceus
So much
came in
wisdom.
clutch
Yeah.
so consistently, both with just such, saying the exact right thing at the exact right time. God, that brutal takedown of Trent at the end of dinner that they had with him was
so good.
incredible.
Yep.
Another favorite Caduceus moment of mine is when they were in the city of Cognosa and they're all like, what do we do? And Caduceus said, I was raised my whole life.
Yeah, I was born to.
I was born to do this. Let's put this thing in the fucking ground.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't think I've ever heard Caduceus get that intense before. And that like moment had so much weight because of who Caduceus was. And how brilliantly Taliesin played Caduceus.
Yeah,
I mean,
also
all
his
of them
reaction
have
to Trent
played
at
their
the
characters
end.
brilliantly.
His reaction to Trent at the
Oh
end.
my god,
when
Black
the house
eyes.
is burning. Yeah.
Ooh.
That I was like, no, yike.
It's real.
Yeah.
Caduceus was consistently a character that came in.
He was the trope. He came in when they needed it. He was the trope of the old man, right? That the classic story thing of, you need an Obi-Wan Kenobi, you need a Gandalf to guide you through everything.
Yeah.
And it's kind of beautiful that he even recognized, that Taliesin recognized that was his role and regularly said, I'm not with you to the end, but I can see you still need me.
Right.
Yeah.
So whatever that purpose is, I'm here.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder how things would have been different and what the characters would have looked like
if Molly hadn't died.
If Molly was there the whole time.
Yeah. And we definitely need to talk about Molly in a little bit, but we'll loop back around to him, I think, after we've gone through some of the other characters too.
Yeah. I think so much of what made the Mighty Nein their family was the fact that they suddenly had to face the fact that they were broken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And then
Yeah.
and then that's why. And it happened so early. What
It
was it, like
did.
fifth level, sixth level?
Yeah.
Like it happened so early on that it remained this enormous weight
Yeah.
that they had to deal with or just crumple under it.
Right. It happened right as they were starting to think of themselves as a
The
group.
crew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I could do also. How are we going to talk about clutch Caduceus moments and not mention the insane divine intervention
Oh my gosh.
to
That was
resurrect
amazing.
Kingsley now?
Yeah.
Put it back.
Put it back.
Whatever
That
it
Put it back.
that was truly another incredible, super memorable moment of the campaign.
Yeah.
What I liked about Caduceus, aside from the fact that he just was consistently clutch, is sort of some of what you were saying too, Matt. Is he was sort of this calm in a group that was
Chaos.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's emotions were all over the place, positive and negative, and there was a lot of bad shit happening to them. It's really interesting to compare the Mighty Nein versus Vox Machina, because Vox Machina basically got to be recognized heroes for most of the streamed campaign. Right from the beginning, like from the time they actually started streaming the first campaign, Vox Machina was already on the Emperor's council.
Mm-hmm.
He'd already thrown them a party in the capital of Taldore. They were already these big damn heroes. And the Mighty Nein, no matter how many people they saved, no matter how many times they fixed things, no matter how much recognition they got within smaller circles, important circles, but smaller circles, no matter how much they did that, they were never the big damn heroes. They were
they never got
always the
called
underdogs
to solve something, really.
Yeah, and when they did, they kind of accidentally stumbled into trying to solve the war, right?
Yeah.
Where they were like, we are the only people that can do this, so I guess we have to.
Will.
Yeah. So, but with all of that going on, Caduceus was such a calm in a crazy storm around them, and I think that's something the Mighty Nein desperately needed in this campaign. With everything they faced, they needed a calm voice, and Caduceus was so consistently good at being that calm voice. And it was really great. It was a really, really strong character. Again, Talison's really good at embodying an old wise man because he's
1,000
thousands of years old.
Sure.
But yeah, awesome. Shall we move on to talk about I don't know, Ford?
Also love Ford.
George. We love all the characters. That's why I want to give all the characters a moment to sort of go through them and talk about them and what we liked about them. And
Travis has a very special place in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
Just because if you guys can't tell, I'm also the player that's going to go up and push that big red button if it's there and deal with the consequences later. That just instantly just scratches that itch for me. I don't know. As I'm trying to think about it, I'm trying to review, all right, what was Ford's story? And it was a lot of learning in a very open and receiving way, right?
Yeah.
He didn't have any high horse to come down on. And none of them really did. Caleb could have with his crazy intellect, but Ford was the one that seemed to be most open to. I don't know if that was Travis in the moments that he would, forget what was going on or something else, be like, oh yeah, I don't know. Sure. Yep. I'll accept that.
Remembering things is hard sometimes, especially with
awful.
If you're a very like hyperactive type person, which I think Travis
seems to be. Yep.
Been on the record as being that type of person. I am also that type of person, so I understand. Yeah, Ford was I think at the beginning of the campaign, he was the character I was most intrigued by, the mystery surrounding him right at the beginning, because like all of the characters had a mystery from the very, very beginning. All the characters had some mystery elements to them, which were all eventually resolved in time. But it was Ford's mystery that was the most interesting one to me. And with where did his powers come from? And in a way, that to me was, oh, warlocks have some really interesting role play potential.
Yeah.
I think if as long as DM and player are able to communicate with each other in a way to really thoroughly flesh out what that relationship with the patron is going to look like, whether it's going to be some mystery or if it's going to be a friendly type thing, or whether it's going to be a domineering type thing, or anything like that. Warlocks inherent to the class have this insane role-playing potential just from their relationship with their patron.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that mystery of Ukatoa was really, really cool to me. And the more I learned about Ukatoa, and the more, especially when they did the pirate arc, and went down into the ocean, and Ford was starting to open some of those locks, and I was getting nervous that they were going to free Ukatoa, and the Mighty Nein were getting nervous that they were going to free Ukatoa. That was really compelling for me. And then I really liked where Ford's story went after that, with what does it mean to break a pact with your patron.
That might be my favorite moment, actually, is dropping that sword.
Yeah.
Or stabbing him. Like,
yeah.
And you could see it on everyone. That and the cupcake are right on just incredible moments of just when you fool the DM so much and fool yourself, you have no idea what the hell's about to happen.
That was a super defining moment for Travis and for Ford. Jesus.
They are the same.
Also, I don't want to brush past the cupcake moment because we didn't talk about it at all when we were talking about Jester, but one of the most clutch moments in the entire campaign.
Genius.
One of the most genius things at the table. So clever, so well played.
Yeah.
They really brilliant. It was incredibly brilliant. And an extremely satisfying and cool way to defeat Isharna. That was really cool. But to go back to Ford's moment, him breaking the Warlock Pact, Ukatoa, and then the few episodes after that where he
didn't know what it was doing.
He didn't have
just
the powers.
Dude. Yeah.
He was just a dude. And it was really touching seeing the Mighty Nein, start handing him as many magic items as they could spare to try to protect him and help him while he was figuring it out. And then watching him try to start figuring that out. Where does he want to go? And him getting led to the Wild Mother, and the connection that forged between him and Caduceus was all really, really cool. And as I previously alluded to, the moment he became a paladin was around the time I got caught up with the show. That was I'm glad that's where I got caught up at. That was an incredible story moment, an incredible bit of role playing. That whole few episodes was all very, very cool. And and then after that, I think it was interesting to see what Ford tried to find his new role in the group after that, because it did take some time after making that transition away from Ukatoa for him to sort of find his footing, where things have changed. That was really interesting. It was well played, and I really liked I really liked that at the end it was him and Bo, and they were like, everybody else has to get out of here. If anybody has to go down, 2 of us can go down, but we can't let anybody else go down.
Sure.
And I like that. I liked that he did sort of grow in. I mean, from the beginning, he sort of became a de facto leader, right, because of his high charisma, but became the face of the party. But by the late campaign, even though the party was making decisions as a group, Travis Ford had sort of a very really good leadership qualities as a character.
Yeah.
He was very good at figuring out what they were actually going to do, taking everybody's suggestions, processing it, and saying, okay, so this is what we're going to do, right? And that helps a lot.
And I think it was how many times, right, did the Mighty Nein start going down spirals as they talked with each other, and they kept coming up with increasingly out there ideas as they tried to figure everything out. And how many times did Ford rein them back in with, what are we going to do?
Right.
Because we have to do something, and we don't have time to sit around and argue about it. What are we doing?
Yeah.
And the Mighty Nein needed it in those moments, and I think Ford did a really good job with that. And I do kind of like that they left Ukatoa open, if for no other reason than it gives us a chance to go back.
We're gonna
one shot.
It's a one
right?
shot.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a one shot. It's gonna get stolen from the Cobalt Soul.
Yeah.
And then they got to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Thank goodness. I think Travis, as a player, is the one that you can see. They're all having fun, right? But you can see that Travis is having fun the most, and that's why I find him and all of his characters so compelling.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it is about sure creating this story and this fantasy, but it's about everyone having fun.
Yeah.
And kicking back and telling a crazy story and laughing, and he just embodies that so well.
And Travis, you could see on his face anytime something cool was happening with other characters, how excited that made him.
Yeah.
And that was, you could see, again, everybody clearly was having a good time, but Travis was the person it showed with the most.
Yeah. I love watching, things will be happening and my eyes will just go to Travis because he will be reacting, and his reactions will typically be what my mental reactions are to what's happening.
Yeah.
Or he'll be talking with somebody else and trying to figure out what they're saying.
And as previously alluded to, he was the one you can most consistently rely on to push the big red button.
Right.
Right. And I think making bold decisions like that is part of what makes D&D so awesome, right? Is when somebody makes the risky play, when somebody makes a bold choice. And I loved that Ford was that person.
Yeah.
Speaking of bold choices, Sam lets Liam pick all of his characters. Let's talk about Not.
Let's talk about Not. Not slash Veth.
Not Veth.
Veth was I I don't think anybody necessarily saw that twist,
No.
right? But Sam so brilliantly put in tiny hints to it,
Yep.
leading up to it,
Yeah.
leading up to the reveal.
I can speak halfling.
Yeah.
Forever ago.
Right.
I can speak halfling, or the letter to Yeza, that not signed with not her name, but it was her name.
Right.
With the money. I mean, yeah, there were lots of little hints, and it was really, really cool to learn Nott's backstory, and it was super. It's not something that I don't know. It was really fascinating because I've never seen something like that done in a quite like that in a fantasy story before.
Veth is this interesting. I think because it is one of Sam's characters, it's gonna go for the immature bits that are so entertaining. But it's a combination of that and the steadfast just mother.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And it's this interesting duality between those two things that they're both active at the same time.
Yeah,
is what makes it so just compelling and interesting, right?
Yeah.
That, and anytime she wants to it's just instant smile.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of my favorite things is that, you know, right before the pandemic started, is at the Chicago live show.
That's right. You went to the
Transform,
live show.
I was there. It was so good. Just out of no, like, I at least wasn't expecting, like, that everyone was hinting to it and saying, we're going to do this soon, right? But being the Mighty Nein, I was like, oh, you're going to drag your feet for 9
Right, it's going to take...
before you actually... Yeah. And then they're like, now we're going to do this.
Yeah.
We're going to... Here it goes. And I was there sitting in a very uncomfortable chair. Ooh, real bad. And already, like, that show started, like, 2 hours late. So there's a ticketing error up front. Ooh, boy. And then all at once, like, the entire auditorium, you just feel everyone. They're not doing this now. They're not. And then they, like, showed the new character, like, card with all the stats and the name and picture. And, of course, everyone just shat their pants.
Simultaneously.
Yeah. That was so freaking cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't there in person, but it was, that episode was so cool. Seeing that transformation, and I really liked how Sam played the tension between Veth's desire to keep being an adventurer and Veth's desire to spend more time with her family.
Right.
Yeah. I think that I mean, I'm not a parent myself, so I can't necessarily speak to
unless you count our cat.
Unless you count our cat, Salem. Then yeah, I'm a cat.
I'll count Salem.
Okay. You know, I can't necessarily speak to the parent angle on that of parents who wants to have who love their family and want to spend lots of time with their family, but also want to have a fulfilling work life or a fulfilling life outside of their family at the same time, and the tension between those two things sometimes. I thought the way Veth and the way Sam and Veth portrayed that gave me a really good window into what that struggle is like for so many people.
Yeah.
I mean, also, we should talk about the fact that Yeza is just
the best husband.
The best husband. Literally
so much.
Literally the best spouse anyone could ever hope for. Yeza was so supportive, so caring, always wanted to support Veth. But I really liked what they did with that.
Yeah, it was very cool.
Yeah, it's this constant, because they are like this family, right? But it's
Right.
it's this weird in between place where she's like, no, this is my nuclear family,
Right.
and this is my other family. They all are still encompassed in this one big family, but there are subdivisions
Right.
that are just pulling at each other.
And they're not necessary. Like she can't bring her nuclear family with her because she has a
She does
child
a
who
lot of times at the
dies.
end.
Yeah, but like Luke dies. She can't. That's
And
not.
it was kind of Veth's fault because she made
Yeah,
a
'cause
bunch
she-
of noise.
Yeah, she didn't
At the
sneak
cavern
well.
entrance? Yeah.
Um,
Well, she did,
and she
then
just
she and
yeah,
like Sam and Laura just kept like doing one of their like funny bits.
yeah.
It was just, oh no.
Yeah. No, that was a heart-wrenching moment.
Yeah.
Kelly was
yeah.
very tense.
I don't like when
we were watching that.
children, innocence dies.
Yeah.
Not fun.
Ben, I'm gonna play an 8-year-old next game we do.
Kelly in our home game plays a 10-year-old
Yep.
sorcerer.
Yep.
Oh, incredible. Then I don't have to. Then. You're already handling that.
His name is Xavier,
Yep.
and he has died
Yep.
and been resurrected.
Yep.
And she did
I
almost cry.
almost beat Ben up because
She
I was like, "How dare you
She
kill my
almost
10-year-old?"
cried, and but it was all okay. And she almost beat me up, but
Yeah.
it's fine.
Listen, growing pains.
Lovingly.
Yeah.
Being 10 sucks.
Being tense.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, Beth was super cool, super great, fantastic, and really showed me what Arcane Trickster can do. Arcane Trickster's got a lot.
I think it's still my favorite. It's the first character I ever played was an Arcane Trickster, and it might be my favorite.
Yeah.
I almost played one for our campaign until I saw that you were playing it, Kelly, and I was like, oh, okay, great, I'll go. I also love bards, because everyone shuts on a bard, so I'm gonna do a bard.
Yeah.
I'm excited to I don't want to be Sam playing Sam playing Veth, but it's definitely shown me what that can do. Because there have been a couple other times where I'm like, I didn't know that this character that they were an Arcane Trickster, because they don't rely on like their magic to do stuff as much. And so I was like, it's tricky for Nyx because she's not supposed to do magic, but
Sure.
she can still do some of that cool stuff.
Yasha.
I wish we'd gotten more time with actual Ashley Yasha. The time that we got with her was great, but because of her filming schedule, it wasn't.
Because of her doing real life, incredible, great work. Yeah.
Not gonna it's
right.
I'm not criticizing Ashley for doing great things, but it's just it's unfortunate that it had to also.
I really wanted to see in the ending when they went and saw all these dynamics and complicated relationships that, because it was in the denouement, like there really wasn't time to explore. The whole gang isn't there to explore with Yasha. I think if they had decided to go to that point earlier, we would have learned a lot more about Yasha, and she would have had an interesting growth to maybe even get her wings
all the way
sooner.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, this weird kind of playing on the trope of, whether intentionally or not, that barbarians often just get turned. Always, they're just so easy to charm or something else, because that's not typically where you're going to put your stats, right? And those defensive, wisdom, intelligence, charisma saves. So whether that was like an intentional choice or just unlucky dice, was always this fascinating kind of like metagame commentary, but also so fascinating to be like the tragedy of never truly being able to, for so long, control your own destiny and just being a pawn for someone else that she and Caleb could connect with and others could relate to and try and help her through.
Yeah. Yasha's
beautiful.
Yeah, Yasha's story.
Ashley did a great job building.
Absolutely.
Oh,
and Yasha's story of learning to love herself and learning to love someone else again was really powerful and moving for me. Particularly Yasha learning to appreciate herself. And I've not gone through anything like what Yasha has gone through, but you know, I have struggled with depression and anxiety, and I still do. And you know, in some ways, I could see some of those struggles in what Yasha was going to a greater extent, given how much more traumatic what Yasha was going through was. Sure. But it was really the wings, the process of, you know, over the course of the campaign, as the dream sequences continued changing, breaking the shackles, making the right choices in the dreams, getting her wings. You know, as that developed over the course of the campaign, and she finally got her wings and learned to appreciate herself again, and that was really moving for me, because when you are down on yourself, it can be really hard to find a way out of that spiral of self-doubt and self-hate and self-pity. And it was really cool having a character who had a physical manifestation of that, in a way. And, you know, I've never had a loved one die before. At least,
a significant other.
I've never had a significant other die before. I've had loved ones die before, but I've never had a significant other die before. But it was really cool seeing her learn how to love Bo.
Yeah.
Because I think in another way too, it's like there is a life after grief. And it was really cool to see Yasha go through some of that.
Yeah, discover that.
And also, I want to say that, you know, obviously, I think everybody would have loved if Ashley had just been there the whole time, right? I mean, you know, Brian Foster, famous for saying Blind Spot is his favorite show because, but I've never, you know, with that being said, and again, you know, I love the stuff when Ashley was there with Yasha, but also her absence created the super compelling Oban arc.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh man,
that arc.
What a scary arc.
Yeah.
Was
like not just like
yeah.
Ooh, the introduction of the like bodily horror and the like ooh being mind controlled, but like just I don't know how best to say other than just scary stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, the Oban arc was super, super compelling. And I think one of the things that made it so compelling was the fact that Yasha was fighting alongside him.
Yeah.
And there was the debate amongst the Mighty Nein. Is she doing it of her own volition or is she forced to do it? And this big desire to find out. And then this big desire, how do we weaken Oban? How do we weaken the Laughing Hand? what is it Oban's trying to do? The reveal that the Angel in Irons was Tharizdun the whole time. The Allura Vysurin showing up during that arc, which was so cool for me. And obviously for all the players, because another super memorable moment of everybody screaming around the table when Allura first walks in.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But that made for a really compelling arc, and Yasha was already going through the grief and depression and self-doubt and self-hatred stuff beforehand, but then afterwards, with how much trauma that put her through, it really gave a lot of fertile ground for some really, really good role playing. And I think Ashley played Yasha brilliant.
Yeah. She was, I don't know if maybe I just didn't notice it, or like Yasha didn't joke in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Like that quote of like, this is Yasha, she's the charm, right? The like now and then the thing about kill your family, throw them over a bridge. That was like the first like big joke that she did simply situationally, and by the end,
she was making
Yasha
so many
was throwing
jokes.
jokes right and left.
Yeah.
So
Yasha's
like
growing.
beautiful to see her like almost recover.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think the other thing too was it was really cool because while Yasha was in a much better place personally, like mentally and emotionally by the end of the campaign, there was a lot of stuff of recovery is not a straight line in her story as well. Particularly, she seemed to be on this like really positive trajectory with the Mighty Nein, and then they go to Molly's grave, and his body is there. Right. And that sets Yasha in a whole new spiral. And even at the end, when they go to see Yasha's tribe, and seeing sort of that, her having to face that grief all over again, and that scene at the grave of Zuala, I think that was, aside from the very, very, very end when they all said goodbye and they were all tearing up, and Travis said, "Let's do it again." Aside from that moment, the closest I got to crying during the finale was at Zuala's grave.
Yeah, it was Zuala's grave. I think seeing Matt Mercer tear up at the end, especially when Teleport was on the book down, it was those two moments.
Yeah.
I'm gone.
Yeah.
I'm out. Yeah.
Well,
you mentioned super quickly, you mentioned Allura, and I as in the last moment with Artagan, if there is, remember audience, this is still before State of the Roll with potentially next big project announcement. If and when campaign 3, I think we're gonna see Artagan again. I think that was a straight up hint.
The Artagan reveal
so good.
Was incredible. Yep. And Artagan meeting the Mighty Nein, the rest of the Mighty Nein afterwards, and again, having seen campaign 1, the number of jokes and references to that killed me. Particularly talking about, he doesn't look like the type of dude that would just like choke someone for no reason, so I'm sure it's fine. So funny. But yes, amazing. And yes,
I think if there was an Easter egg for maybe a future, I think that was it.
Yeah,
maybe
because
when he said goodbye to Jester,
that's a whole rabbit hole we can go down.
Yeah. Well, and just really quickly, one thing I missed mentioning when we were talking about Jester was I did really like her relationship with the Traveler slash Artagan and how it changed, right?
Yeah.
Because I think all the way up through Traveler Con, it was a very one-sided relationship. And watching Artagan realize how much Jester actually meant to him and
How much he actually needed her.
and how much he actually needed her and how that put their relationship suddenly at a level, put them on a level playing field with each other was really, really interesting and really well played by both Laura and Matt with Jester and Artagan. Super well done. Well, that's the core members of the Mighty Nine, except
there's
for
Kiri.
there's Kiri, of course, except for, of course, Molly.
Right.
And it's so crazy to think about an alternate reality where Molly lives. Because that final arc was predicated on Molly's death. Right? That whole final arc would not have happened the way it happened if Molly hadn't died earlier in the campaign. And I thought it was I thought it was incredible. I think it was super well done because yes, obviously there was a really crazy end of the world plot going on, but there was also this insane, like, personal, character-driven, emotional connection between the Mighty Nine having to fight someone wearing the face of a fallen friend, of a family member.
I want to know if Matt foresaw them trying to appeal to Molly within Lucian before they started doing that. Because when they started, like, talking to Molly within, or like trying to remind Lucian of Molly's life, I was kind of like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't think it was really gonna affect the way that everything played out, but it played a big role in how they were able to defeat Lucian in the end.
I think there was some thoughts about the possibility of doing that because I think there were some interesting hints to that in the lead up, right? Because even Kree asked Lucian, why don't we just kill them?
True.
And every time Lucian was like, I don't know. I like them. Something about them.
Right.
And there were just these little moments. Yeah, I mean, again, even before that final fight, there were a couple moments where, you know, Lucian would pause and be like, and then shake it off and keep going.
Yeah.
There were enough hints that there was still Molly somewhere.
Yeah, the possibility was always there.
Yeah. I just thought it was brilliant of them to kind of latch onto that and make that the kind of the center point of their fight against him.
Yeah. It was this, it's kind of what I was like 6 years ago now. What I was saying about like the interesting things about combat or things that make it more interesting or unique that I don't, Ben, you've DM'd much more than me, but usually when like, and when I've sat down and tried to think, okay, how to make this combat scenario interesting, or what are the Easter eggs to help the players actually make this, like turn this from a super difficult fight to like a medium difficulty fight? Like, what are the keys that they can find hidden away in here, right? I wasn't like when they first started appealing to the Molly side, I was like, you guys are, what are you doing?
Why are you wasting your time?
You're wasting your action sometimes doing this.
Right.
I'm confused. I wouldn't do this. And then very, very quickly it turned into, oh no, there is a thing.
What clued me off that there was a mechanic to it was the first time one of them said something to Lucien in the first phase of the fight. I think it was Bo. I think Bo said something to Molly, and Matt said, "Is that just a throwaway line, or do you use your action to say it?" And in my head, I'm like, "Oh,
there's something here.
There's a mechanic.
Yeah,
there's a
I
mechanic
don't think that
here."
I don't remember all the dice rolls fully, obviously, because I'm not insane.
Right.
Sorry if you remember all the dice rolls fully.
Hey, if you don't remember the dice rolls fully, but you need to look them up, boy, howdy, do I love crit roll stats.
Yes.
We are not at all affiliated with them in any way, but boy, they're great. They do great work.
Big old thumbs up to them.
I'm sure I don't have to tell any critters that may be watching this, but yeah.
You want to know what day
it
is?
Oh my God, yeah. If for no other reason that they keep track of the in-universe calendar for us.
Yeah.
I do remember looking in that final fight with Lucien. I do remember looking at crit roll stats during that fight, and I glanced at it and it said, Lucien has taken 448 points of damage at this point. He's looking rough. And I was like, oh my God.
I don't think there was a way. I don't see a way that they could have won that fight without appealing to Molly.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't think, like, I haven't done any research on that, but I just don't think it's there, because that's so many legendary actions. That's so much power.
I was trying to figure it out, right? Because I think it burned a legendary reaction per turn.
Yeah.
Per round.
Yeah.
Right. So, but yeah, I mean, just burning a couple legendary reactions each round, I mean, saved them a lot of extra hits.
Yeah.
Well, let's be real. Marine Layer and the Ring of Fire.
Marine Layer. That was a brilliant use of Marine Layer. It was
so good.
It was incredible. Yeah. But yeah, I really also liked. I really liked the direction Taliesin went with the resurrection. After Lucien had been defeated, they all sat down. They attempted the resurrection ritual, which I think this was the only full resurrection ritual of the whole campaign.
Yeah.
Because every other resurrection has been revivify, and per Matt's resurrection rules, which I have read because I have the Tal'Dorei campaign guide, because I wanted it. I wanted it. You know, per those rules, you don't do a full resurrection ritual for revivify, but you do a full resurrection ritual for any longer ones. And so I think, yeah, it was as far as I know, it was the only full resurrection ritual of this campaign. So I remember watching it and like, oh my God, how appropriate that they're doing it on Molly.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was the natural one, and it was everybody beginning that grieving process, and then the clutch divine intervention put it back.
It seemed like it was just like I wonder if this would work on Talison's part of just like worth a shot. But
then, you know, I really liked that Taliesin didn't just make him come back as Molly.
Yes. I think that's a bit of the lessons that even like Caduceus imparted, right? Of being okay with death and saying goodbye.
Yeah.
And the fact that after all of this, no, they weren't going to get Molly back.
Yeah.
Because it on one edge, you're right. After everything they've done, would it somehow negate some of their growth to suddenly
Yeah.
have their friend back?
And not even that, but it would undermine the grieving process that they were going through in that moment, but that they had also already gone through, that they were processing the entire time that they were with Lucian. They were dealing with all of that stuff. So as much as I would have loved Molly just coming back as Molly, I think it was a richer storytelling experience to have the resurrection work, but have it be someone new.
Yeah.
To have
Great choice.
Great
choice
not
for Taliesin.
remember.
I think it was Talison's choice.
Yeah.
Yes, I think so, because I mean I don't know for sure. I'm sure we'll learn in like campaign wrap up.
Right.
But I think, I think Taliesin chose to interpret that as maybe it is the fragment of the soul that had previously been Molly, but Molly's.
It wasn't. I don't think that the fragment of Molly was large enough. Like it wasn't the original person in that body, so it wasn't large enough to come back fully.
Right. I think, and I suspect we'll get confirmation of this when they do the campaign wrap up one way or another. But I do think that was a Taliesin choice.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a really interesting decision, and I thought it was a really cool decision, and one that did lend the story weight. It lent, it was great. It was great.
I thought it was interesting that when Molly Kingsley came back, all he was saying was empty. And I just started thinking, I wonder if that's what Molly said when he woke up, and like whoever found him.
It was. They talked about that in an early part of the campaign, but that was ages ago, so I don't blame you for not remembering. He did. Yeah, when he first woke up, all he could say was empty, and that's where the name Molly Mock Tea Leaf came from.
The empty.
Yeah. Yeah. Super, super cool.
But also to the point that was brought up earlier about like what would they have been like if Molly hadn't died.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we can wonder that until the cows come home. Because I think that
fly home.
Yes, I think that what that part of this story really highlights is the fact that the people in your life change you and like influence you and make you who you are. And if one of those people came in or out of your life at a slightly different point in time, you would be a completely different person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how unique and special that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So hug your friends.
Yeah.
Hug your friends.
Now that you can hug them again.
When it is safe to do so. When you and your friends are fully vaccinated.
Hug them again.
Hug your friends again. Yes. No, I mean, really, I think now that campaign 2 is over, looking back at the whole campaign, it felt like a much more like a much more small scale personal story.
Yeah.
Vox Machina were the big damn heroes, and I love big damn heroes as much as the next guy, especially big damn heroes portrayed as brilliantly as the cast portrayed Vox Machina.
Yeah.
And how interesting scenarios Matt set up for them and all that stuff that I won't get into a ton of detail because I don't want to spoil everything for the two of you, though, Matt, I know you've already looked up most of the things.
But, I know everything.
And Kelly, you probably
I feel like I know the highlights.
Yeah. But,
actually, no, that's not true. I know the things that were relevant to this campaign.
But the Mighty Nein were a different sort of group, and it was a different type of story, and because it was a story about, because it was a smaller story and much more, personal story, it really resonated with me. I think I know I've said that a million times tonight, that things about different characters resonated with me, but it's true. I mean, it was really, it was a really cool journey to have been on. I don't want to go too much longer. We've been talking for like almost 2 hours now, or maybe over 2 hours now. But I guess to bring it around first. Favorite NPCs quickly. I mean, I know everybody loves Essek. We also love Essek. He was a very fascinating character. It was really interesting to see him, to see how his trajectory was changed by the Mighty Nein. Because he was going down a very, frankly, evil path.
Right.
And by befriending the Mighty Nein, he found a better path. And that really feeds into those themes of interpersonal connection and how the people around you change you and all that stuff that were so prevalent in this campaign. And I think Essek is really exemplifies that in a lot of ways. I don't know if anybody else has anything else they want to say about Essek.
Pumat?
I was just thinking the same thing.
Pumat's so just feel good.
Yeah.
Such a calming presence.
Yeah.
Such a calming presence from when the Mighty Nein did not have a calming presence. Mm-hmm. And then it was just kind of like when Caduceus was there, it was just like an extra calming. Yeah.
Pumat was incredible. We've already spoken of our love for Kiri.
Kiri. Yep.
Kiri was great.
Who developed because of a random instinct to let's dig into what that weird noise is. A little more. Push that little red button a little more.
Yep. Absolutely.
I love Jester's parents and Yeza. We talked about Yeza.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. In terms of villains, Avantika was a magnificent villain. Oban was a great villain.
Mm-hmm.
Brent was so.
I thought he was gonna be the big bad.
Yeah, that moment when they meet King Dwindle after the big confrontation in the cathedral, right? And they lay all the information on the line about the Angel of Iron's cult, all this stuff. They basically bring a ceasefire about in that moment. And as they're leaving, when Trent goes up and says, "You've come a long way," from a bunch of like pit fighters and sellswords, especially you, Bren. And that moment was so intense and gave me chills. Obviously, Lucien was a super compelling villain, if only because of the connection that the Mighty Nein already had to Molly. Right. I mean, that amplified everything he was about by a bunch. But Lucien also had a ton of cool other things about him. But I think what really elevated him was the personal connection that Molly had with the Mighty Nein. Also, I want to shout out the guest characters that were on the show.
Splat.
Spurt. Yep. Spurt. Played so brilliantly by Chris Perkins. Greenie, obviously, as Kelly said, Mika Burton, incredible. Twiggy.
Yeah.
I really like Twiggy. Also, Shakasta.
Oh yeah.
So freaking.
So fucking cool.
It is. I will say one thing that it's a little bit sad, and I understand why, because of the pandemic and also because of just the nature of the final bit of the campaign. But at the end of campaign 1,
Yeah, they
a
could bring
bunch
folks
of
in.
a bunch of the guest
Right.
characters came back and made appearances. I would have loved to see some of the guest characters come back because all of them were great. And we barely scratched the surface. Just a couple of examples. Everybody who came on as a guest player during campaign 2 was phenomenal. Shikasta, I think, was maybe my favorite of the guest characters. In a large part because Carrie Payton. Oh, I hope I didn't screw up his name.
I don't recall. Yeah.
His voice is so distinct, and it has a really, really fantastic quality to his voice.
That's when I was still listening to everything instead of watching the sessions. It was all on the podcast, and I was just like, "Oh yes, Shikasta's back. Here we go."
I am sad that because of the pandemic, and again, like I said, because of just because everything went the way it did.
But how beautiful that they could still, once they figured out the logistics of it, continue finding that connection, just like with players, with each other, with the crew and their own family.
And they did
because this entire campaign was about the family and familial connection and ties.
Guest players were great.
I'm just excited to see
what's next.
This Critical Role has grown into this tremendous creative force that's not only telling interesting and compelling, wonderful fan culty stories, but now they've got their foundation, they're doing incredible community work, they've got a broader outreach, partnering with people, having a voice to actually do and accomplish so much that not only on that end that inspires the fundraiser in me, but also just is so satisfying for so many thousands and thousands and thousands of people to feel that they are so close to this story, right, and to resonate in so many creative and wonderful ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Any final thoughts we want to share? I know we could talk for endless hours about campaign 2, but any final?
I have so many things to say, but I'm pretty sure if anybody took a shot every time I yawned in the last 2 hours,
they died.
They would have died.
My final wise thoughts will be, anyone from the cast of Critical Role, if you'd like to adopt me.
Or Alien
Would
Travis
accept.
Willingham, if I can meet your child, I would die happy.
Okay, well, with that, we'll bring this little discussion to an end then. I just want to finish by saying thank you, Mighty Nein. Thank you, Critical Role. And thank you, anybody who is willing to check out
Our thoughts.
3 people just sort of talking.
Yeah.
Critical
Thanks,
Role,
guys.
what we like.
You're still here.
If you're still here,
You made it this
There you go.
far.
Thumbs up for you. You're
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Seriously though, we appreciate it a lot. Let us know in the comments. There's so much to love about this show. Talk about what were your favorite parts of the campaign, your favorite characters, NPCs, favorite player moments. I
Share.
like that this was a very positive discussion, and I would love to see more of those positive thoughts and memories of Critical Role. Tell us your Critical Role story, how you first got into the show, and what it means to you. It's been a wild a wild ride. I know we're all excited to see what Critical Role does next. So if you stuck with us for this long, once again, thank you so much. And if you would be so kind as to maybe check out some of the stuff that we have on our channel.
We're small.
We're small as of right now. We're just getting started, but it would mean a lot if you checked out some of what we did. We're not comparable to Critical Role right now, obviously, but hopefully it'll
Maybe
bring
one
a smile to
Yeah,
your face.
please don't bring that expectation.
Yeah, please don't bring that expectation.
we're
But
just people having fun.
hopefully it'll bring a smile to your face at the very least. And if you want to see more discussion style videos from us and from other people on our cast, let us know too.
We can ramble.
Yeah, I think it'd be really fun to do more D&D and TTRPG related little conversations like this. So let us know if that's something you're interested in seeing. All that good stuff that of course pleases YouTube, likes, comments, subscribing,
Share with your
stuff.
friends.
Share with your friends. Share with some critters
Yeah.
if you think that this is something that critters in your life would enjoy. Because I know this has been, if nothing else, this has been very cathartic for me to sit down and talk about campaign 2 and sort of come to terms with the fact that it's over.
Good processing.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Well, thanks so much for checking out. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.